The sun on Viral 9 was the color of blood, deep red and unrelenting. It painted the cracked earth in rust and shadows, a fitting backdrop for the long-awaited prisoner exchange between the United Human Colonies and the Sworthy Empire. After years of brutal trench warfare, orbital strikes, and biochemical skirmishes, both sides were desperate for an uneasy peace. This truce was their last chance to avoid extinction. Sergeant Ray Halvorson stood stiff in his exosuit, watching as soar the shuttles hissed steam and opened like blooming black flowers. The air smelled like ozone and scorched metal. Around him, fellow human soldiers stood in formation, their weapons stowed but charged, while alien warriors in living armor of pulsating green kept similar guard on their side of the no-man's land. "Keep your eyes forward," Major Reynolds barked through the comms. "We don't break discipline now. Not here." Ray didn't answer. His mind wasn't on posture or protocols. It was on the men they'd lost. And maybe, foolishly, it was on what the Sworthy would give back. Dozens of humans had been captured alive, but none had been seen since. Until today. The first wave of prisoners shuffled from both sides. Some walked tall. Others limped or were carried. The exchange was methodical, one for one. Every face told a story of suffering. Hope and horror mingled on both sides of the line. Then, unexpectedly, one of the Sworthy emissaries stepped forward, holding a thick data tablet. A translator parasite writhed in her throat, squirming with each word. "We present a final token of closure," she rasped. "A reparation." A murmur rolled through the human lines. The woman motioned, and a tall figure stepped from behind the armored escort. Ray's breath caught. It was a girl. Or rather, a young woman, clearly alien, but humanoid enough to stir recognition. Her skin was silver blue, like mercury under moonlight. Two dark horns curled delicately from her temples, and a thin membrane traced from her shoulders to elbows like soft wings. Her eyes were enormous, luminous pools of violet, and her expression unreadable. "She was taken during the early planetary sweep," the emissary explained. "A civilian of disputed heritage. Our high command no longer recognizes her as one of us." The girl was shoved forward gently but firmly, and the Sworthy envoy nodded toward the human side. "She is yours." Before the humans could protest, the Sworthy began their withdrawal. The message was clear: take her or leave her. Either way, the truce moved forward. Ray caught her before she stumbled. She was shivering, barefoot, and light as a feather despite being nearly his height. She didn't resist, just looked up at him with those unsettling eyes and whispered, "Please, don't send me back." Her name, they would later learn, was Ilani, and she hadn't spoken for the first 3 days under human protection. At least, not to anyone but Ray. "She responds to your voice pattern," the base linguist had said. "Some sort of trust imprint. You were the first to catch her, right?" Ray had nodded reluctantly. He hadn't planned to become her guardian. He was a soldier, not a babysitter. But every time someone else tried to approach her, Ilani would shy away. If Ray entered the room, she would sit up straighter, almost hopeful. By the end of the week, command had assigned her to Ray's personal quarters. Temporary custodial arrangement, they called it. In truth, she didn't need guarding. She wasn't a threat. But she was a mystery. "They left me behind," she said one evening, her voice soft, melodic. She sat cross-legged on Ray's bunk, fiddling with a metallic band around her wrist. "My blood wasn't pure. I was a hybrid. The Sworthy consider impurity a defect." Ray sat across from her, arms folded. "And they just gave you to us." She looked down. "I'm a liability to them. But maybe an asset to you." "I'm not interested in assets," he said, and meant it. You're safe here. That's all that matters. Her violet eyes met his. You say that now. Time passed. The war didn't resume. Instead, the border base on Viral 9 became a fragile center of diplomacy. Ray went on patrols, ran drills, returned to his quarters, and found Ilani slowly transforming from a quiet stranger into something else. Friend. Companion. A wounded soul who made the silence less unbearable. She had a strange sense of humor. Dry, clever. She picked up human idioms like puzzle pieces. She learned to cook with ingredients she didn't recognize, singing odd alien tunes. When Ray had nightmares, she'd sit beside him until he woke. Your people were trying to destroy mine, he said one day as they watched the sun set. She nodded. And mine sought to erase yours. I didn't choose either path. Still, it's hard to forget. Ilani didn't flinch. Then remember. Just don't let it be the only thing you know about me. 1 month after the exchange, a delegation of Sortha arrived unannounced. They came not for talks, but for her. An error, they claimed. Her return is required for the continuity of our social genetic ledger. They disowned her, Ray told his commanding officer, fists clenched. They left her like trash. They're threatening to suspend the truce unless she surrendered, Major Reynolds replied. She's not a prisoner. She's a person. She's not our person, Halvorsen. Ray found Ilani on the base's northern perimeter that night, watching the stars. She must have sensed him coming. They're taking me back, aren't they? She asked quietly. Not if I can help it. She smiled, a sad small thing. I'm used to being traded. First as a hybrid shame, now as a bargaining chip. You're not a chip. You're not a shame. Ray walked closer, his voice trembling. You're someone I'd fight for. She looked up, eyes wide. Even if it costs your career. Even if it costs everything. For the first time she reached out, her fingers brushing his. Then let's run. They didn't get far. A stealth drone spotted them 20 clicks from base, crossing the scrublands under cover of night. The alert went wide. Human security forces intercepted them before dawn. Ray expected a court-martial. Instead, Major Reynolds met him in private. You disobeyed direct orders. Harboring her off-base is insubordination at best. Ray didn't flinch. She's not safe with them. She's not ours to protect. This isn't about your emotions, Sergeant. It's only about my emotions, Ray said, voice rising. They left her to die. Now they want her because she might be useful again. Reynolds studied him for a long moment. Public sentiment shifting, the major said slowly. A lot of folks saw that exchange. Saw what they did. There's pressure on both sides to show mercy instead of might. He tapped a tablet. The brass is considering alternatives. If she had official human sponsorship, legal ties, something binding, maybe she could stay. Ray narrowed his eyes. What kind of ties? Reynolds shrugged. Something recognized across interstellar accords. Something like marriage. The proposal was strange. The answer was not. Ilani didn't laugh or cry or even blink when Ray asked her. She just stepped forward, her forehead resting against his chest. Yes, she whispered. The ceremony was small. Barely a dozen witnesses, held in a converted supply room. There were no flowers, no rings, just a digital document and a quiet kiss that trembled with more than affection. It was defiance, hope, and a vow. The Sortha returned for her the next day.